Yes, the European Parliament is on TikTok.
Indeed, the European Parliament is on TikTok now, and this is the very first TikTok from the official account after having banned the app last year due to security concerns. So what influenced this decision? And are the concerns regarding security resolved? I am Evi Chiori. Hello, and welcome to Euractiv's Beyond the Byline podcast. The European Parliament wants to use TikTok for the EU elections in June, despite previous bans due to cybersecurity worries. Last year, both the European Commission and the Parliament banned TikTok from official devices due to these concerns, but now it looks like this position has shifted. We spoke with Julia Tar, Euractiv's technology reporter, to find out about the transparency regarding its use and how can TikTok be safely used during the electoral campaigns. Julia, did you ever think that we will get to this point that we will see the European Parliament on TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, it depends when you would have asked me this. Because the news broke at the beginning of February, actually by Euractiv, by Eleonora Vasquez. So she broke the news on that basically the Parliament will join TikTok despite the previous bans and cybersecurity concerns regarding this. So if you ask me since then yes, we knew that this was coming. I would say that at the time of the ban, I did not think that they will, register themselves.
Can you give us a bit of context and tell us what happened in March last year, 2023? Because that's where it all started.
First, it was the European Commission that banned the application for its staff. And then very shortly after, it was the Parliament that followed as well.
The Commission's Corporate Management Board decided to suspend the use of the TikTok mobile application on its corporate devices and also personal devices enrolled in the Commission mobile device system. The measure is in line...
Said in February 2023 during a midday press briefing, Sonia Gospodinova, Commission spokesperson for Internal Market, Defence Industry, Space, Education, Youth, Sport and Culture.
Basically, they had cybersecurity concerns, data privacy concerns regarding the usage of TikTok, but it was only for corporate devices. So you could, if you were there and you had, on your own personal phone, you can, of course, use it. I don't think they can ban that. This month, they announced that for the election campaign, the Parliament, they will still use it. I saw two kinds of opinions on it. One was that, of course, they have to be there because the voters are on TikTok, especially young voters. So it's important. And the other side was that, thinking that this is a hypocrisy to use it yourselves and then ban it for your stuff.
But where does the security concern stem from? Is there really a threat there?
Of course, you give away your data to any kind of application you use in a way. For TikTok, I think it was a lot of the people are concerned about the Chinese aspect. That what if the Chinese government is able to access your data?
Even if they've never been on TikTok, your trackers are embedded in sites across the web. TikTok surveils us all. And the Chinese Communist Party is able to use this as a tool to manipulate America as a whole.
And this is what Cathy McMorris-Rogers, the chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, said during a U.S. hearing in March 2023 when the U.S. Congress interviewed TikTok CEO Shu Zichao.
There was no concrete evidence on this, I want to say that. But some still think that that's the case. And this is, I think, not a concern for other applications. So that's why this is unique to TikTok.
What arguments do you see in your coverage that suggest that the platform is susceptible to external influence?
There were news on, for example, that a journalist who worked at the time at the Financial Times, she was spied on through TikTok when she was covering something related to the app. I think that was in 2022, or maybe that's when the news broke on it. So it was a few years ago.
How does the European Parliament plan to use TikTok in a cybersecurity-friendly way?
That's really a question for them. But I asked them and, they did not give a lot of details on how they plan to use it. That's why I that's why I talked to a cybersecurity expert for my article to see how it can be used that would be completely safe. What I understood from the parliament's answer was that they will not use the infrastructure of the parliament. So that means, basically they will not be, to simplify it, they will not be on parliament Wi-Fi, for example.
Now let's speculate and try to understand the plan here. TikTok is banned on official devices, but the parliament is having a TikTok account now, right? Could we speculate then that the person managing the account has downloaded the app on their personal device and it's using the official account of the parliament on their own personal device?
To my understanding, the ban for stuff is still in place. So on their corporate devices, they cannot use it. So I think it could be someone's, but this is really just like a guess, someone's private phone, and that's where they use their own data. But I think what was interesting is that the cybersecurity expert that I talked to, Valentin Weber, he said that this is not enough. Like, there should be more steps to take. So first of all, he said that it should be like a new, completely clean phone that you don't use for anything else but TikTok. And he also mentioned that they should avoid using the Wi-Fi, and but he said it's not better to use, like, if it's not a clean phone, it's not better to use your own either. Like, it's basically the same type of concerns being raised because it can have access to your data. And what I think might be the most concerning is that he also said that even if like all these requirements are met, your phone can still, have access to your microphone or the TikTok.
Camera.
Yeah, to your camera, exactly. So he said basically they should not even be in a room where anything confidential is being said. So.
Right, I'll take the liberty and ask here, if there is no proof so far that TikTok isn't a tool for the Chinese government to use, why the suggestion to have a spare phone?
Well, the cybersecurity expert, I think he was leaning more towards the possibility that there is this danger, even if it's a potential danger. But he did. For example, I asked him because I know the parliament is also on Instagram. Of course, that is Meta's app, so it's not ByteDances, which is the Chinese one, and which is the parent company or the owner of TikTok. And he said from a data privacy point of view, it's not much better to use that either. But he explained that he doesn't think there is a potential danger for the government there, or even if there is, the US is a different. Is it very different
example of the US? Because you're talking a little bit now about Instagram and TikTok. So let's dig into this a bit more. What is the comparison between the two regarding security?
I will say I did not hear any news on someone was spied on via Instagram. It might have happened, but I did not hear that. So I think that's already might be an example of how TikTok can be more dangerous. But I don't know if this is relevant, but I think it might be worth to mention that President Joe Biden is also on TikTok now. I think the news kind of came more or less at the same time, a few weeks apart, on the parliament and him. So I think it's and that's also interesting because in a lot of states, for government officials, and I think also maybe state officials, it's also prohibited to use their on their corporate devices. So I think this is a little bit of a pattern that at least we have two examples of, both one in the EU and one in the US, that
migrating to TikTok eventually. But one of the most important questions on this is, how does the European Parliament plan to utilize TikTok as a platform to combat disinformation and promote reliable content?
My understanding is that just by being present and posting whatever content they will post, when you're a user on TikTok, you know that, okay, that's the official account of the European Parliament. That is reliable information, what they post. I think that's my understanding. I don't know how much or if they plan to monitor other content related to EU elections and if they find disinformation, what they could or would do. That might be another aspect. But I think just by being present and reaching an audience young voters. That's already something that I think they hope that will, make sure that the people know that that's a reliable information that they can get from there. And of course, you reach different types of audiences, I guess, on TikTok, on Instagram, or on X or X.
You already mentioned that you talked to researchers and experts on this. So in what ways has the changing landscape of social media platforms, particularly regarding data access and cybersecurity, affected their ability to analyze elections effectively? And what implications does this have for the upcoming EU elections?
I talked to 2 experts for my article, and so it was Katja Munoz. She was telling me about this a bit, and what I found very interesting is that researchers somehow simultaneously know more and less about this year's elections. They know more in a way that I think we are more aware of the dangers, like artificial intelligence, deepfakes, cyber attacks, even disinformation. Just like these we are aware of these and a little bit more, I think, than we were a few years ago. But at the same time, she told me that there is less access to data for them and from platforms. So the example that she gave me was Twitter at the time. It was called when Elon Musk bought it, but now we know it as X. So, for example, their feature, I guess, for researchers, which is called Twitter API, which is still available, but now you have to pay for it. And I don't think it's really cheap.
So you don't really have access to data anymore to do your research.
I'm not sure how many people, can actually afford that. Maybe companies. Okay, that's not for me to judge, but she said that that this is an example of how, it's a bit more restricted now. And in general, she mentioned that a lot of people were let go of on social media platforms, and most of those people were working in safety and those kind of departments. So for them, it was more of an open access to data, and it was easier to, I guess, conduct research based on that than it is now.
And Julia, I really wonder, how are the regulations the EU has set in place regarding TikTok can reassure security while using the app?
From a policy point of view, I think it's worth to mention the Digital Services Act, or the DSA, which is already enforced for very large online platforms and very large online search engines. But again, Katja, she noted to me that she doesn't think that enough time will pass between the enforcement and the EU elections for this to really have an effect on this year's EU elections. I guess this is also something that we have to see when we get there. But I think that's also an interesting point to make, that, this might not have such a big impact yet.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So what's your take on this based on your coverage so far?
I think that, everything has 2 sides. I mean, there is a lot of safety challenges and cybersecurity challenges and concerns. But at the same time, I think, as the experts also noted to me, it makes sense for the parliament to be on social media, including TikTok, to reach the voters. So I think, for example, Katja asked me, as I guess a rhetorical question of will you really just let people to play around on social media and not have a say in whatever they say, for example, about the EU elections, and maybe just in elections or democratic tendencies in general. So I think that was a good point. So
yeah, it makes sense, because it is a platform that you can use. So why not use it and contribute in the discourse that is going on in this platform regardless?
Yeah, so, I did not want to message in my article that we should not use it or the parliament shouldn't use it. It's just that I think I don't think there is a lot of transparency on how they will use it. when I asked for details, they gave some that I mentioned to you, but they said that for cybersecurity concerns or cybersecurity reasons they cannot give more, and in safety reasons they cannot give more, which I didn't understand how sharing that would endanger them. Maybe there is something that I'm missing, so I'm open to be corrected. But so I just wanted to look into how, if they use it, now they use it, how it can be safely used.
Thank you very much, Julia. I am Evi Kiori, and this was Euractiv's Beyond the Byline podcast. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news. Sign up for our podcast newsletter. If you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. This episode was produced by myself, Miriam Sáenz de Tejada, and Nicoleta Yonta. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion, and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.